Hi again, guys. So today we are meeting to talk about pages 125 to 148. That includes the chapters Ambush, Style, and Speaking of Courage. So let's first talk about Ambush. Ambush is about the other chapter that we read, where when we read The Man I Killed, this is what happened from our author Tim's point of view. Okay. So before it was his point of view about afterwards when he was staring at that dead body. Here is what happened in this story Ambush. So first he starts off by letting us know that his daughter Kathleen is 9 years old and she wants to know if he's ever killed anybody. And of course he answers no, because he thinks that's what she needs to hear. But the reason he writes all of the stories is because he has killed somebody. So he needs to keep these stories going to keep his sanity. So here's how the story goes. So the story goes, he is lying sort of, in the bushes, and he's waiting. He's watching the area for his platoon. It's his turn to sit out there and be on guard. And as he's on guard, he sees this figure coming through the fog, and he freaks out. And his initial reaction, his immediate reaction, completely automatic, is to throw this grenade. So he throws a grenade and it blows the guy up. That's what happened. So did he have to throw the grenade? He kind of goes through all of this with us. He could have just stayed where he was, hidden. This guy would have probably gone on his way and walked off. And it would have been the end of things. Or it could have gone differently. He could have seen him. He could have come across the rest of the platoon and he could have hurt people. So the way Kiowa puts this is it was either him or you, like you had to do it. And he kind of feels like maybe he didn't have to do it. He gives us a lot of detail here about what it was like, what it sounded like, the imagery of this illusion of war, this grenade making him go away, making him just evaporate. Definitely something to kind of look at. He was definitely scared when it all happened. It was definitely an automatic reaction. Final image of this. Oh, just to point out, as you read through this, you could have come across a great paradox on page 127. So maybe you want to go make a note of that. Probably a really good idea. We look at the very end. It says, what's the significance of the story's final image? So the final image is years later. He's showing us that years later, he still thinks about this moment in time. And sometimes when he's thinking about it, the guy just keeps walking past him, the fog, and kind of gives him a little smirk or a little smile, like they have the secret together. So I don't know. What do you think the purpose of this chapter was? Does it have anything to do with illustrating the definitiveness of death, of war, of fear, regret? Maybe the purpose of this was simply to tell his daughter Kathleen about what it was like to kill a man in war, right? Because he doesn't make it sound like this glorious thing. He goes through it and all the feelings that went with it that time. So I think it's kind of twofold. I think he is letting us know about war itself. I think another purpose of this chapter was clearly to let his daughter know what war was like. Now, the next chapter we get to is Style. The Style is interesting because they've come across this village that's just been bombed. All the people in the village are dead, except this one little girl. This one little girl is outside her hut, and she's dancing. She's just twirling around in circles, up on her tippy toes, dancing, and maybe she's humming a little song. She's dancing and twirling and dancing. It's all she's doing over and over and over again. And they try to talk to her, but she doesn't stop. And later that night, Azar, one of the characters, he starts mocking her. Like starts dancing around, and Dobbins, who we love, right? Henry Dobbins, kind of smacks him in the head and he's like, listen, stop. If you can't dance right, don't do it. Like, stop making fun of her. So he's sort of standing up for her. So why do you think this girl was dancing? What purpose could it be for this young girl, probably like 8 or 9 years old, just to be dancing and twirling in circles outside her hut where everybody in her entire village is dead? Why is she doing that? Maybe she lost her mind. Maybe she's dealing with death. Remember, how do these guys deal with death? They have each other to talk to whenever they're dealing with death, right? They do stupid things like kill water buffaloes. So at least she's not killing anything. She's dancing. This is how she's expressing herself right now. This is how she's dealing with the situation. She doesn't know what else to do right now, and this is what she's doing. Maybe it's helping her calm down. It's bringing her back to her own life. And the last section that you read is speaking of courage. So what's Norman Bowker doing in this whole chapter? He's only doing one thing. Well, he stops later on and has a burger, but other than the burger, all he does this entire chapter is drive in circles, 7-mile circle around the lake in the middle of his town. As he's driving in these circles, what he's talking about is some of the things that happened to him in war. He's talking about what he would like to be able to tell his father. So he wants to tell his father that he's won these awards. He has this pressure, social pressure from his family and from the town to be something, be awarded something. His father needs him to be brave, needs him to be courageous, and he doesn't feel like he was. He feels like all the awards that he did get, he got 7, they were all just uncommon valor, meaning they were things that just you were supposed to do as a soldier anyways. This is what you were supposed to do. So he didn't feel like he did anything special, but almost got, he tells us, he almost got, what is it called? The Silver Star. He almost got the Silver Star for valor. And he tells us a story behind how he almost got the Silver Star for valor. This is, I think of it as Kiowa's story. So they start camping, they set up camp around this field, and it's a swampy kind of field, and it stinks really bad. It turns out that this is a shit field. This is where all the waste from all the towns around it goes here. This is the waste area. It's like a huge toilet. And when it rains, and it rains heavily there, it rains, this swampy, sewage, nasty river raises up, and people and things just sink down into it. So as they're camped in this area, they have to keep waking themselves up and moving so that they don't sink underneath the water. Well, what happens is they're attacked one night. So now they're in this sewage infested place, and they're being bombed, and they're sinking down, and they can't get away. And Norman Bowker hears someone screaming, and it's Kiowa. And he goes to try to get him. He sees the whites of Kiowa's eyes slowly going under the poop, and he runs over, well, not runs. He hurries as fast as he can through the swampy, sludgy, nasty mess, and he grabs his boot, the only thing he can see. He grabs his boot, and then he starts to sink. As he starts to sink, he lets go of the boot. Kiowa disappears. He saves himself, and he crawls out. So is he a coward, or was he brave? Did he show courage or cowardice? That's the thing that he's struggling with here. So he dreams of himself telling this story to his father and letting his father hear this story. He says sometimes, like that night in the shit field, the difference between courage and cowardice was something small and stupid. Well, was the smell really what made him lose it? He says the smell is what made him do it. That was a stupid thing that made him let go of his friend, let his friend die, was this smell. But also, he was starting to drown in the smell. So we have to make our own decisions, our own assumptions about what happened here. He also reminisces just a little bit about his friend Max, who drowned in this river when he was younger. He reminisces about his ex-girlfriend, who's Sally, who is now married. He envisions himself telling his friends these stories, and he thinks Max would probably have liked it. He thinks his father would probably like it, but his father's too busy to talk to him, so he's kind of really struggling. This guy's struggling with PTSD, for sure. He dreams of telling the story to Sally, and all he can think of is not a good story to tell Sally, because she would be like, don't use that language, right? It is the 4th of July, so after he makes all of these circles around this lake, he's thinking about all these things that happened, and he's wishing that he could talk to his father. He eats himself a burger while he's on the road. He decides to sit, and he just watches the fireworks at the end. I want you to kind of think about this smell. Think back to last year when we read Chronicle of a Death Foretold. We had the smell that kept popping up. The smell was a motif, and smell symbolized guilt. Right? The guilt of the whole town not doing anything to help Santiago. Well, here we have it again. The smell symbolizes guilt again, because Norman has a lot of guilt for letting go of Kiowa, because Kiowa died. So something to think about. Think about the purpose of this chapter. What could it have been for? What are your thoughts on that? You come up with some things. And that's all I have for you. Hope this helped.